Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristin West, only on LA Talk Radio.
Well, with that fabulous intro, hello and welcome everyone for tuning in once again to What Women Want Talk Radio. I am your host, Kristin West. Judy Goss is out this evening. Our show tonight is Upping Your Game. Week after week, Judy and I have conversations that feed your mind and energize your spirit, and tonight is no exception. We are all moving up together. And speaking about energizing your spirit, Judy Goss is working with David Bear on a webinar this Thursday that you should definitely sign up for. It is called Master Your Inner Game of Entrepreneurship, and you can register for free on our Facebook group page. And that's the What Women Want Networking Facebook group. It's going to be a fantastic webinar, so grab your spot on the Facebook page. Amy, Lyle, and Meredith Jones are coming on in just a few minutes to talk about how they've had to up their professional game and how that's led to new successes in their fields of endeavor. We're very excited to have them on. But first, I really want to thank you, our listeners. We've been on the air 3.5 years, and we've hit 900,000 downloads. So you know what we got to do? We got to get that up to 1 million downloads. If you haven't subscribed to us, go to iTunes or visit our archives on LA Talk Radio's website, latalkradio.com. Now, I also want to let you know What Women Want is now on YouTube. Just type in Judy Goss on YouTube. We've curated playlists for all the topics that you care about, including our best and most recent broadcasts on relationship, communication, personal finance, and much more. And I really want to continue these great discussions. Make a comment, connect, and share much more by checking us out on YouTube. So here's the thing. We have this playlist on YouTube, which is one of my favorites. It's called Meet Judy Goss. And you can see some of her most fabulous work as a host and a lifestyle journalist there. Judy is a regular contributor on NBC and Fox and founded the company What Women Want Networking 6 years ago. Go to whatwomenwantnetworking.com. Judy also just hosted our first national conference in Atlanta in October. Women flew in from all over the country. I went, I loved it, and I was just so delighted to meet so many of our listeners and so many of our wonderful guests. We have several regional chapters spanning from coast to coast with What Women Want Networking. So come visit us at a chapter in your area, or if you don't have one, let's blaze the trail here. Let's open one. Talk to Judy about that. Connect with us if you're open to opening up a chapter. Judy is also a St. Martin's Press author, a freelance writer for New York Lifestyles magazine, and she's the mom of 13-year-old twin girls. Very busy lady, Judy, and we wish you were here with us tonight. Now, to learn more about me, check out our Meet Kristin West playlist on YouTube. I'm an award-winning actress, producer, and screenwriter, and you can see me in the upcoming films The Lich and Hell's Kitty. I was also honored this weekend, Halloween weekend, with a screenwriting award for my new screenplay Likeness at the Fantastic Horror Film Festival, which was really exciting, and I want to thank the Fantastic Horror Film Festival for that. So I want to really dive into upping our game with our first guest, Amy Lyle. Amy Lyle's story actually begins with a failure. A Hollywood entertainment attorney told her he would not represent her. She's now a regular on one of Atlanta's favorite morning shows and is being featured on NPR radio, magazines, and countless blogs. You know, and here's the thing. How is this happening for an unknown self-published author that just released her book, the Amy Benegar Kim's Lyle Book of Failures, this past May? Well, we're going to find out how. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Hello.
Amy,
thank you for having me on the show.
I am so excited to have you. So, Amy, how did you get started off in being Amy? How did you get to be a comedian and a radio host and now an author? How did that happen for you?
Well, the author, I grew up in a very strict family that did not want to call any attention, don't ever call attention to yourself. And so that created, of course, an actress, comedian, and a person that writes a book about every failure they've ever had. So it kind of backfired for my parents, whom I love very much, but that's how that happened.
Wow.
And you put a lot of restrictions on your children.
It's interesting. I think people underestimate the contrarian nature of children. And,
yes.
And that's the thing, that when someone says up, I know a lot of children that say, oh, no, down. You say left, they go right. Well, good for you for not living limitedly. Now, you do stand up. I would imagine you would have to have a special relationship with failure to be successful in stand up.
Yes, you do have to have it's something that you build a very thick skin, and you have to try new things, and there's rules about it. You do 2 solid jokes that work, and then you squeeze in a new piece in the middle, and to make sure that you hold on to your audience. So there's all kinds of rules about that. But yes, you definitely experience a lot of failure in stand-up comedy.
It's interesting.
Absolutely.
I was watching some of your stand-up on your comments about social media, and I think they were so truthful and so dead on. So please, check out Amy's stand-up if you want to laugh, especially if you've had one of those Facebook overload days. You've got to see this stuff, because Amy's really funny about the social media. Now, I want to ask you something. Did you do anything you didn't expect to have to do to elevate yourself to this level?
I'm sorry, say the question again. What did I do to elevate myself to this level? Was that the question?
Sort of. What I was saying, is there anything that you didn't expect to have to do to elevate yourself to the level that you have?
No, I came from a sales background, 20 years of sales, and I come from a very hardworking family, and so I just have that, what's next? Like, as soon as you get one thing, it's like, what's the next thing? I just have this internal drive, and it is, it's so fun, but it is an all-day thing, and trying to figure out how to keep moving forward and turning one opportunity into the next opportunity.
How did you stumble upon your opportunities? Did you have like a plan, or were you riffing? What were you doing?
Well, I was a corporate trainer, and then I got remarried to somebody that had 3 children, and I had 1, so we had 4. And my new husband, knew that I had a passion for some other things, and he's like, why don't you pursue that just head on, like 100%. And so I had been working on a screenplay for quite a long time, and as you mentioned, so I finished the screenplay. It was under the mentorship of somebody who used to vet films for Disney. And under his leadership, he said, you're done, you're done, and here's an entertainment attorney, call him, use my name. And he even, emailed him prior, and I called, and he just said, I'm not going to represent you. You're no one. You don't have any money. You can't just show up in Hollywood and sell a screenplay. You need to have a book or a blog. And I said, what am I supposed to write a book about? And he said, write what you expletive know, and hung up on me.
Whoa.
And it was a great piece of advice. And immediately, Kristin, my mind went, I have had a lot of failures. I mean, it just came to my mind. And so I wrote this book. Of course, I had a content editor and everything, but I wrote this book that reads kind of like a David Sedaris, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Amy Schumer, Chelsea Handler. It's essays, short stories about all kinds of failures. And to your point about social media, we have 3 teenage girls, and they are very, very concerned about social media, and that's not real life. I mean, it's really not. So it was really fun for me to to break that down and to share a lot of failures with them. And out of that has come really good things, or people coming forward and saying, you gave me a relief from my day for a few minutes, or you made me feel better. The comments on Amazon are, it's not just me, I'm not alone, so that's been really fun.
Well, you're ringing all my bells here, because I used to actually read scripts for a company that had a first look deal at Disney a long time ago in a galaxy far away.
Oh, my goodness.
So I've been one of those readers, and I can tell you there is a lot of gatekeeping when you're trying to get your story out. Did you find as much gatekeeping in the publishing world? Did you choose to self-publish, or how did that work for you?
You know what? I had such a sense of urgency because I was working on this film for so long, not because I had a mentor and he had a real job. I mean, he no longer worked for Disney. He was literally like the information technology officer of like Salesforce.com. I'm not kidding. He was, had a big job, and he was, helping me on the side. And so when I would send the changes, it might take him 6 months to get back. And so the process got so drawn out with the film that when I did the book, I was like, I just want this to get to market as fast as possible. And so here I am, a mom, 45, 4 kids, a dog, husband, and wrote this book and self-published it, and it's number 6. I mean, it is my book. It's just a miracle. Like, my book is wedged between David Sedaris, Trevor Noah, Tina Fey, Amy Schumer. It's just so exciting. And so, and I had to learn that because I didn't know anything about publishing. And so it's just been so fun. There's so much available online that you can study and learn about how to, market your book on Amazon, and then how to push people, to Amazon to look at your book.
So you really had to up your game to achieve what you achieved with getting that book, that level of prominence. How did you do that? Was that social media marketing, or what was the cocktail?
Yeah, it was a mixture.
Okay.
It was absolutely a mixture, Kristin. It started off with, I wanted to have a fun book launch and not a salesy one. I think that turns people off when they immediately start selling to you on any platform, be it print media, be it a billboard, be it social media. I think that turns people off. And so that's my opinion personally. I think that all these things should be used for branding, and the whole purpose of branding is getting to people to know you and for you to get to know more people. I think that's the purpose of that. So I had this giant book launch, and I wanted to give away a lot of prizes, and the whole theme was empowering women and women business owners and women that had changed their lives after 40 new careers, and very powerful, fun. I mean, I only read 3 minutes of my book because it wasn't about that. It wasn't about me. It was about having fun and, open bar and prizes. And so my community surrounded me, and they said, we'll give you 100 wine glasses. We'll give you all these prizes. A plastic surgeon friend of mine gave away, I'm not making this up, a vaginal rejuvenation treatment and a vampire facial. I'm not making up. So that was fun for the press to get a hold of. As you can imagine, like, go to Amy Lyle's book launch, you could win a vaginal rejuvenation. It was hilarious. And then I started thanking people on video, and I did these short videos. The longest one was maybe a minute. They're normally 30 seconds. And I would say, one I did on the roof with a roofer because he donated all these prizes, and I was like, he was very serious about the roof, and he said, this is what you look for. And then at the end, I whip my book out of my purse. I'm all harnessed up, and I say, Mark is changing, he's fixing roofs, but I'm fixing lives. And then I'd be like, come to the book launch, on this day. So the book launch, we had 333 women show up.
Whoa.
And this is a great story. I wanted to do a big Amazon push and have everybody buy the book on Amazon to make my numbers, go off the charts, really, kick it off. Well, the internet connection crashed. I sold no books at this book launch that cost as much as a wedding. But the next day, I sold 500 books.
Wow. Well, I think what you're speaking to is really not only getting out of the comfort zone, but not necessarily walking down the beaten path. That's all of the stuff that you talked about. I mean, the vaginal rejuvenation, the rooftops, wow. And you really took a big risk because weddings are not cheap either. And if this is comparable, I costed out a wedding one time for a movie. It was $50,000 to do.
Oh, my book launch was not $50,000. But I mean, imagine 333 women with an open bar.
Right. No, that could get pricey.
It was very expensive. And then from there, I just kind of it just became so funny. Like, I'd see people at the grocery store and they say, your videos are so hilarious. They're so fun. I mean, one I did, it's just one I did from the bathtub. You couldn't see anything, and I did it as a public service announcement, and I just said, please carpool because there's limited parking. And that was it. That's all I said. And then I turned my head around and drank a glass of wine, and my daughter was filming it. And you couldn't see anything. And I had a mud mask on my face. So it wasn't trying to be provocative whatsoever. It was just trying to be comical. And it got like 5,000 hits.
Well, you know what? I think what it is that you did you, because it sounds like this is totally this level of excitement and comedy and playfulness is really inherent to you. You didn't try and become Miss Author, Miss Self-Help, Miss whatever, fill in the blank flavor of the moment. You really did you.
Right, and don't you recommend that? Because even if you're like, let's say you're doing a social media campaign, and I have some, some apps that can help you really grow your social media, and some of them are free. But if your message is constantly sell, that's very off-putting. But if your message, and regardless, like Meredith's social media campaign, she can't be in the bathtub giving financial advice. But Meredith could do a tip, every Tuesday, tips on Tuesday about financial services. She could post women that she admires. She could post, things like that, facts about the market. So she's still building a brand, but it's not salesy, but her message would be, I'm an expert in my field. I'm an expert in my field. And so, it doesn't really matter if you're an investment banker or you're in PR or you're an actor or you're a comedy writer. It's you. I think you just hit it on the head, Kristin. You have to be true to yourself. And you're not for everyone, right? Everybody is not. I don't like every single book. I don't like every single film. And so I can't expect everyone of that. And that's the thing too, is what is your best market? My best market are moms and women, confident women, to be honest with you. Confident women love my book, and I think it's so funny. And my screenplay is like a combination of bridesmaids and bad moms. Also confident women, funny confident women that can laugh at themselves and laugh at their failures, and always say it's even funnier to laugh at other people's failures. Your product is probably not for every single person, and that's the death to you if you say, what's your product for? Oh, it's for everyone. Well, besides toilet paper and bottled water, that would be hard to do.
No, it's absolutely true. And I think one of the things you're speaking to about not being so salesy is someone once gave me some great advice that you have to romance the sale. And you have to make people feel that love for what you are selling. So you talked about social media, and you talked about the tools you use. What are some of your favorite apps?
Okay, my new favorite app, this is so exciting, is www.appcreatorcollabs.com. And this tool, you put in a post, and it can be in any platform. So you could be running your campaigns in any, on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, and you put a post in there, and it's like a point system. And so then I agree. I pick topics that I like. I like dogs. I like films. I like independent films, independent indie writers. I like whatever, and politics, news, weather. I put in those, and then I pick posts that I would naturally pick anyway. It would be weird if I started posting things, heavy, things about construction sites. That's not mine. I'm not going to post that. But if it's about women or art or a new funny film, I'm going to post that because I would naturally post that anyway. So again, you got to stay true to yourself, and then you earn points, and then your post gets shared, by other people. It goes into a pool. And just as an example, and I did, my last post got shared, regularly on Twitter. Twitter's like New York City. Like, it's so tough. It's so tough to make it on Twitter.
Too. You can't really, you have to kind of move with it. So yes, I want to ask you, what's next for you? What's going on next for you in the life? What's your next big failure?
Well, I'm hoping,
Kristin,
and you're in this business, I'm hoping you'll tell me. I'm hoping that you'll tell me, Amy, with with a top 10 best-selling book on Amazon, The Book of Failures, Amy Lyle, I'm hoping that you'll say, that's going to make it a little bit easier to open doors in Hollywood to sell a film. I'm hoping that's the case.
Well, I am hoping that for you too, Amy. And so where do we get, Amy, you're such a funny person. You're so talented. You're such a trooper. You're so ebullient and have this I can tell, zest for life and what you're doing. How do we keep tabs on you after the broadcast today? Where do we go? What do we do?
Sure. My site is amylyle.me, so www.amylyle.me.com was taken. I am not a narcissist. It was taken. And then my Twitter is just Amy Lyle, and my Facebook page is amylyle.me as well, amylyle.me. So Facebook, amylyle.me, website, amylyle.me, Twitter, Amy Lyle. And the book is available in a Kindle version and a paperback version and new on audio. It's read by this fantastic actress out of New York City, Angela Massey. It's available on Audibles on Amazon.com.
It's not me, Al Franken, ladies. It's me, Amy Lyle. All right. Well, Amy, thank you so much. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Meredith Jones. Meredith Jones is an internationally recognized researcher, writer, speaker, and expert in the alternative investment industry with over 19 years of experience. She's an alternative investment consultant and author of Women of the Street, Why Female Money Managers Generate Higher Returns and How You Can Too, which won an Axiom Award Gold Medal in 2016, and she was also named as Inc. Magazine's 17 Inspiring Women to Watch in 2017. She also serves on the board of directors of Rock the Street, a Wall Street nonprofit that provides one-year financial and investment literacy courses for high school girls. Welcome to the show, Meredith.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for hanging in there with some of the little spooky technical glitches we've had. I guess there's some sort of strange little ghost or something fumbling with our phone line. So I wanted to thank you for your patience and your tenacity. And
no problem. I just figured I had jinxed something. I'm a terrible technology jinx, and so I figured it was my fault. So no worries whatsoever.
Well, it was probably us, so don't you worry about that. And I want to ask you something because I'm just intrigued by this. As a person who's trying to get more educated about financial literacy, the stock market, and what's available out there to invest in, what is an alternative investment consultant? What kind of investments are considered alternative investments?
So this is the part where everyone on this show is going to start to hate me because what is considered alternative investments generally get really bad press. So alternative investments are hedge funds. I can hear everyone breathing the word boo. Private equity funds, venture capital funds, real estate funds. It's anything that isn't a traditional stock and bond fund. And it's a fairly esoteric area of the market. It is restricted primarily to institutional investors, so pension funds, foundations, endowments, people who are managing money on behalf of other people for the most part. And so it's been a great area for me to specialize in because it's not as crowded as, let's say, just investing in your basic stocks. So that, there haven't been quite as many sharp elbows coming at me throughout my career.
Well, first thing I'm going to say, for all of you that did say boo right now, no, because many of your favorite movies were filmed based on funding from hedge funds. So if you like movies, many of them were funded through hedge fund-like mechanisms. So I like you, Meredith.
Well, that's good. And you have to know, speaking of movies and money management, that the industry is not like the Wolf of Wall Street. I think that people believe that the Wolf of Wall Street with people, taking drugs off of hookers and tossing little people at Velcro targets, or Boiler Room where people are selling things to investors who don't really know what they're buying. That's not really what the industry is like. For the most part, I would say most people in the industry are here to try to help people. At the end of the day, what we're dealing with is we're trying to help people retire or send their kids to school or pay retired teachers and policemen and firemen their pensions. And so it's much better to think of the industry that way than the horrible stories that you read about in the media from time to time. Those, I would like to say, are the exception rather than the rule.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I like to sort of tug at what is common perception of things. And I want to know how you got interested in this line of work. It's not always a female space, is it, Meredith?
It's almost never a female face. In fact, if you look at any part of the financial industry, women are a incredible minority. If you look at the most populous part of the industry, which is your run-of-the-mill investment advisor, women are about maybe a third of those professionals, and then the numbers go down from there. So if you think about a mutual fund that may be in your 401k or your IRA account, only about 10% of mutual funds are managed by women. So it's really a very sparsely populated area, which on the one hand is terrible and something I've been fighting against for my entire career. And on the other hand, it's great because I've never had to wait in line for the bathroom at an industry conference or event. So, pluses and minuses. But weirdly enough, I actually got into the industry from answering a printed want ad in the newspaper, which tells you how old I am, unfortunately. But I saw an ad for an entry-level hedge fund analyst. I was working at a business publication at the time. I decided, hey, I'm a geek. I'm kind of nerdy and good with numbers and a decent writer, so I'm going to pursue this job. I went after it. I got it. I worked my way up from the very bottom of the food chain to where I am now.
It's fascinating, and I think your story is fascinating because what blows my mind about this whole dynamic, because I was watching some of the press you had done prior and some of the things you've written about, is what drives the economy is people purchasing things. And women make the majority of purchasing decisions for any given household, at least in the United States, the largest economy in the world, every single day. So one would think that women would have a sought-out voice in this area. I want to ask you, what drove you to really research this in depth and in Women of the Street? What's the premise of the book?
So the premise of the book is that even though women are not really prevalent in the financial services and investment industries, and even though women are often told that they're not good with money, I mean, think about all of the running jokes on sitcoms about, oh, don't give your wife or your girlfriend your credit card, and, women not having money to spend or something like that. The perception is that women just aren't good with money. And the premise of the book is actually, if you look at the data, women are great with money. Women are better savers than men. Women are, most of the research points to potentially better investors than men. And that's something that flies in the face of common wisdom. But at the same time, I think it's really important for women to know because, as you mentioned, women are a powerful financial force in the world. 48% of the estates valued at $5 million or more are controlled by women. Women control over 50% of the investable wealth in the United States. By 2030, that number will go up to 66%. Women, 93% of women report that they make they're either the sole or a shared financial decision maker in the house. And so women really have a lot of financial power, but they've been underserved in the industry. And part of that comes from these myths that we're not good with money. And so looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of research studies and conducting my own research and doing interviews with very successful women investors, what I discovered is women are great investors and they shouldn't be intimidated by it. And they should jump in and they should take control of their finances because that's the only way that things are going to change.
And it's interesting, on the lowest levels, I'm a really big fan of Kiva.org, which is the micro-lending organization that loans very small loans to women in impoverished and third world countries, and not just women, but everybody. But it's hundreds of women who are small business owners. So you are exactly right about women, being participants in the world economy. What assets do you think women have that make them more likely to generate higher returns? Is this biology? Is it behavior? What is it?
Well, there's a combination of factors. So biology certainly plays a role. Women are wired to react to stress differently, for example. So women have a tendency to internalize stress. I know that's certainly true for me. If I have a bad day, I come home and I indulge in carbs. And that is how I get over my stress. Men are different. They have a need to react externally, and they want to fix things. And you can see that sometimes when you argue with your spouse or your boyfriend, that they just want to come up with solutions. And sometimes you just want to vent as a woman. And when you translate this into investing, what you see is that women can do a very good job of ignoring market noise. So when the markets are going up and down, they can separate themselves and not necessarily have to take action. Men, on the other hand, are much more likely to take action. And what does that translate into? Well, that means that they trade more. And everyone knows that if you trade more, you make less. And that can translate alone into 1 to 2 percentage points a year of excess returns for women. So it's biology that translates into behavior, and it's the way that we process information in our cognitive processes, and all of that comes together to give us some very innate talents and natural reactions when it comes to dealing with our money and the markets.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because do women also deal with volatility different than men? Volatility right now, I was just looking at the volatility index earlier today, and it's pretty much almost at the all-time low. Do women deal with volatility different than men? Because they call the volatility index the fear index.
Yes. And I think that women do deal differently with that. One of the things that some of the studies have shown is that men have a tendency to be overconfident when it comes to dealing with their investments in the markets. Women, on the other hand, are usually underconfident to confident, so on the lower end of that spectrum. When you're overconfident, you always think that you're right. So if the markets are volatile and you have that, as I mentioned, natural inclination to try to do something to ease the pain of seeing your investments go up and down and up and down, chances are you're going to make some bad decisions because you always think you're right. What women do is that they can take a step back and they can say to themselves, is my investment bad, or is the market just acting crazy? And if the answer is the investment is fine and the market's crazy, then they'll stick with it. If the answer is the investment is bad, they'll get out of it. And so being able to take that step back and question yourself is really part and parcel of being a good investor. And we saw this happen in 2008 when the markets crashed. There was a study that looked at retirement accounts for men and women. And what they found was that men were about 10% more likely to sell at the bottom of the market. And so as a result, they locked in those losses, and they actually performed worse because of that.
And one of the things that it's interesting that they would react that way, because one thing that I had always heard, never lock the loss. It's interesting that you bring that up. Now, I want to talk about your career specifically, and I'm interested in knowing, was there a point in your career where you had to really up your game? Was the expectations higher? Was there, because you were in a male-dominated field?
I would say that I have always been an overachiever. I think that's part of being the daughter of a teacher. She always had very high expectations for me. But being someone who was in many ways alone in my industry, I didn't meet another woman who had a job similar to mine for nearly 10 years after I started in this industry. So I really felt like I had to go all out. And when I decided to write the book, that really kicked into overdrive. It was a terrifying experience because here I was putting this book together that essentially said to an industry that is 95% male that women actually are better investors. And so as I was sitting there preparing to turn the final manuscript into my publisher, I started to freak out. I mean, I really, to use the vernacular, I pooped my pants just about. I mean, I was freaked out. And it was, I started thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to work again. No one's ever going to talk to me. I'm going to be a pariah. This is terrible. What have I done to myself? I never should have taken the book advance. This is crazy. And I happened to get a call during that period from a friend of mine, and I told him what I was thinking about and how terrified I was and how people were going to say terrible things about me on the internet and on social media, and it was going to be awful, and my life was over, and yada, yada, yada. And he said to me, there are two kinds of people in the world, Meredith. There are boss bitches who get out and say important things and do important things and live their lives. And then there are angry Dorito-eating assholes who sit behind a computer and say terrible things about people. You have to decide right now, do you want to be a boss bitch or a Dorito asshole? And I sat there and I was like, I'm going to be a boss bitch. And so I turned my book in, but I was terrified. And one of the things that writing the book taught me is that sometimes your fear of failure can be your own worst enemy. You can't let that stop you from doing the big, scary, important things. The reason they're scary is because they're important, but that's also the reason why they'll be rewarding. And so that was a moment where I really had to decide who I wanted to be when I grew up, and I had to grow up pretty quickly.
I want everybody to put their right hand over their heart right now and take a breath and just greet and welcome your inner boss bitch. I love that so much because it's so true. You can't give a crap about what other people think when what you're doing is so important. And what I think you were doing at that time and are really advocating and evangelizing for is so very important. And I'm glad that you brought up failure because I don't think we talk about it enough. It's been sort of, I've been on a failure tear on this show for probably the past 2 or 3 weeks. Is there a failure for you that was a teachable moment for you?
Well, I fail almost every day, I would say. First off, I mean, I worked from home today, and I failed to get dressed. So there is all of the small failures that I revel in every day. I think that when I first started publicizing the book, when you write a book, I don't know what everyone else's expectation is, but certainly I had, these delusional Harry Potter-esque kind of fantasies about how the book would come out. And I got on Twitter, and I started a Twitter account, and I started a blog. And for the first, 3 months, I had like 100 Twitter followers, and maybe 4 people read the blog. And there were more than a few moments where I sat there going, why am I doing this? Nobody cares, obviously. This is ridiculous. No one's ever going to read a tweet of mine. And this, if you write a blog in the forest and no one's there to read it, did you ever cut down a tree at all, or whatever that metaphor is? It was terrible. But after sitting with that for a while and looking at my terrible numbers, I decided that was just part of it. That if you're going to build something, you have to expect that you're going to walk before you run. And so I kept at it, and now my blog is picked up by 2 or 3 different financial publications. My book won an award. I still don't have a bazillion Twitter followers, but, I've got more than 100 now. And so you just have to always put in the hard work. There's no excuses for homework. And having that really slow period when I was expecting to be Stephen King, I think was a really important lesson for me to learn.
Well, I think we can help you with the Twitter followers. If you're listening right now and fascinated like me by what Meredith has to say, find her on Twitter. Let's throw out your handle. What is your Twitter handle? It's at MJ_Meredith_J. Is that correct?
Yes, it really rolls off the tongue there, doesn't it? So yeah, at MJ_Meredith_J. So and then you can also find that from my website, which is www.aboutmjones.com.
So Meredith, I'm fascinated. You've got the book. You're rolling along. How are you upping your game now? How are you using this as a launch pad to greater things?
Well, I'm really trying to get the message out that we've got to have more diversity in the financial services industry in order for everyone to be richer. This is not just about, men need to take a step back so women can take a step forward. The end result and the conclusion of the book is if we had more women in this industry, everyone from Wall Street to Main Street would be better off. They would be better off because their 401ks and IRAs and investments would be generating better returns because there would be more women in the markets. They would be better off because more female-founded companies would get investments, and female-founded companies have a tendency to perform better, and they create jobs at a faster rate than male-founded companies, so more jobs for Main Street. And if you think about it from the perspective of how money gets spent, women have a tendency to invest 80 cents on a dollar in their family. So families globally would be better off. And so I'm really trying to get the message out that we've got to be more inclusive in this industry. And that goes two different directions. Number one, I'm trying to get the word out to investors that they demand to have some different looking people and some different thinking people when it comes to investing. The other part of that is that I've been working really, really hard with a nonprofit called Rock the Street Wall Street so that we can get high school girls interested in even having a career in this industry. Because part of the problem is that people look at the industry and they look at the street cred that we have and they think, this isn't for me. And you know that women and girls tend to shy away from STEM and math-related subjects. And so we really have what's called a pipeline problem. So at the moment, I'm trying to work the equation from both sides, create demand from investors, create supply at the high school and college level, and hopefully over time we'll have more women in the industry and everybody will be fat and happy.
I so agree with this on so many levels, and I think that women in particular have valuable insights, like I said before, with how the family spends its money. And I'm so glad that you're doing this and teaching girls, because one of the things, especially with girls, is that if you don't have economic empowerment and you don't have education, that makes it really hard for a girl to advance herself in the world that we live in. And I'm so glad that you're doing that. How many students are impacted by this endeavor?
So it's a relatively young nonprofit. We are currently in 5 cities in a number of schools. We do full year curriculums. We're looking to expand to at least 3 or 4 more cities next year. And every city that we go to means that we touch more lives. And if we can encourage people, girls, to invest in themselves and to learn about finance, they will be more financially secure going forward, whether they choose a career in my industry or not. And in addition to that, if they do choose a career in this industry or in another STEM-related industry, families can get out of poverty in 1 generation. That's so important to me. I grew up the daughter of a poor school teacher in Alabama. So helping other women figure out how to break the cycle of poverty and not having enough is really, really something that I think is critical.
Well, that is what I call upping your game and also paying it forward. I am so pleased that you're doing that. I'm so excited that we've had you on our show today. Now, I know we talked about Twitter again, but let's plug that again and tell me how else we should connect with you and where we buy your book.
So the book is available on Amazon. It's in hardback and Kindle format. Again, the title is Women of the Streets, Why Female Money Managers Generate Higher Returns and How You Can Too. I just want to go ahead and say it is not an opaque, painful typical financial book. There's a lot of storytelling involved in it. There's a lot of humor. I don't believe in trying to make things difficult to understand. That's one of the barriers for people getting involved in their own investing is they think, I can't understand this. And that's a terrible place to start from. So I think it's pretty accessible. And then my Twitter handle again is about MJ_Meredith_J, and my website is www.aboutmjones.com.
Meredith, once again, thank you so much for all that you're doing to empower women. Thank you for talking about your book and having you on. And I want to give once again a big shout out to Amy for jumping in there and treating us to some stand up. And she's a standout lady too, so check out her book as well. Next week, we are going to talk about love and relationships. We're going to have May Vu, the founder of Hot Life, Hot Love, and Dr. Colleen Mullen. They're coming on to talk about everything relationships, love, career, and friends. You don't want to miss this. May is a hoot and a holler, and Dr. Colleen has so many insights. You're going to want to definitely either catch this live or on the replay. Join us again next week or visit us at whatwomenwantradio.com. Thank you for supporting us, everyone, and have a great night.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristin West, only on LA Talk Radio.